We ready to...
What are you drinking there, Keith?
Oh.
We're starting a special episode. This is a special episode.
It is a special episode,
Yeah.
and that's... Since it's a special episode, it means it's Code Red. Mountain Dew Code Red. Who ordered it?
Did you order the Code Red? You're goddamn right I did!
You can't handle this.
You can't handle it.
I've seen movies.
You see what we're doing
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Mountain Dew. Where's those sponsorship dollars?
Yeah.
Not me, Mountain Dew. I wouldn't be caught dead drinking that swill. I'm a Red Bull fan myself, because I'm a elitist. Elitist? That
Sure.
checks out.
I guess.
What kind of white trash? At least neither of us are drinking a rock star. God forbid. Can you imagine?
Can
you imagine?
Get out of my face, rock star.
Jesus Christ, well, I got truck nuts. What are we talking about today? This is a special episode. What are we talking about today? It's a special episode.
The glitch of the Matrix? What are we doing? What was that? I'm scared now.
Me too. Let's just let him know. I haven't slept for a while.
He has not.
I've flown in to Boston. This is where Keith lives. Exact address in the description below. Take a look. Take a look. He wants you to stop by and say hi.
I do not. I do
But
not.
I've been awake for a long time, since like yesterday, Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah. He's a busy guy. I'm not. I do nothing. I have nothing going on. I'm well rested.
I've never been more prepared for an episode.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
I'm a little delirious. I didn't eat or drink anything all day, this is true, until about 6 p.m. Eastern time, when I had
My time.
3 beers and some chicken fingers and a Cobb salad. And so
The dinner of champions.
Not hydrated, not very coherent,
Yeah.
and which really puts me in the perfect state of mind for the Bluff Council.
Belligerent and angry. There you go.
Pretty caffeinated. Pretty caffeinated.
There you go. It makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Before we get into the episode, it's a special episode. We should talk about we are in a different location. Every time we've done an in-person episode, we're in a different location, which I love the production value.
Yeah. Then we're setting this. It's like my t-shirts. You start a pattern and then you're like, oh, I'm broke. You gotta have a new location every time.
Every time, new location. I want to give a quick shout out to Deja Brew, the coffee shop that I frequent here in South Boston. If you're ever in South Boston, go check it out. Buy a cup of coffee. Buy 10. They're, the people here are fantastic. They're allowing us to use their facilities while we are here, while I was in town. Get a couple episodes in.
Deja Brew.
Deja Brew.
You get it?
It's a coffee pun, guys. It's a coffee pun.
No, it's great. Yeah, I was super grateful.
Yes.
It was very strange. Keith was very vague. Just said, we're going to a place I know by my place.
Yeah.
And I was like, this seems weird. Expecting the police to arrive at any moment.
This is an elaborate setup. Here we go. This is a special episode, right?
Yeah.
And should we mention that again?
Has anyone mentioned it?
Do you want to tell them why it's a special episode?
It's a special episode because kind of unintentionally, we're doing our first ever non-movie that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's strange that this is the one that got us. It's really, it wasn't intentional. We don't want any credit for it being intentional.
I want credit.
Yeah.
If you like it.
I don't know what Keith thinks about this series yet, so I don't want to say that like this is a mistake or this is a great celebration of this show. But it's a show that was recently on Netflix. It's quite popular and I think pretty polarizing, and it's called The Watcher.
Who are you?
End of episode. Get those views, baby.
So here's my first question. Did you watch The Watcher?
I did watch The Watcher. We saw it feels, I don't know, it doesn't always feel like this, but with Netflix it often feels like a trailer comes out and 3 days later it's on. And that's the first I'd ever heard of it. So it was like maybe a week before we watched the series, we saw the trailer. I was like, oh, what's this? Interesting cast. Naomi Watts, very talented actress. Bobby Canavale. I'm gonna try not to really zhuzh that up. It's hard.
He's had a few drinks. He's had a few drinks.
I had a couple drinks. I can't be held responsible for my accents. Bobby got, Mia Farrow got me really excited when I saw her in the trailer. It's not every day you see Mia Farrow show up. And so I thought the trailer was intriguing, and both Monique, my wife, and I
That sounds like 3 people to me.
Yeah,
When you say it that way.
So we need the Oxford comma in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's important. Both Monique, my wife, and I, we all, the 3 of us thought that seemed like a good show to watch. So we checked it out. Tell me about your sordid background with The Watcher.
Yeah, we just finished it. We burned through it pretty quickly. My wife, Nicole, my wife, and I. No one gives a shit. I watched the show. No one cares.
Were you excited? Had you seen the trailer?
I had, my wife saw it. I was like doing something else. She watched the trailer and was like, we should watch this. And I like kind of caught bits and pieces of it. I was like, oh, what's it about? It's like some guys watching a house, like some like spooky guy. It's like a Halloween thing.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
watch it. And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. It's like getting in the October mood.
Yeah, getting in the Halloween spirit, the Halloween season, because we like to watch the scary movies for this month as we record this in October.
Yeah. So what'd you think? What'd you guys think? What's the hot takes, Keith?
Well, I don't talk to my wife, so I don't know how she feels about it.
We watched it in separate rooms.
Yes. Here's where I like to start. I start with the two questions to me for everything, and they are 2 different questions. Are 1, did you like it? And then 2, was it good? And those are 2 different things that we'll continue to stress that each and every time we record one of these episodes.
It's a great point, Keith.
Thank you. I'm full of them. Did I like it? Yes. I enjoyed it for quote unquote for what it was. I went along with it. It was fun. I'll leave it at that. We can get into what I thought was fun about it if you want to.
Okay.
Is it good? Half and half.
Wow.
I say there are things that I think are well done, and there are things I go, Daddy no like. Daddy no like. So I go 50-50 on was it good objectively.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good review.
Yeah.
For saying like, I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed
thought
it.
It was half and half.
And
good.
there were some good things I liked and some things So I would recommend it.
You'd recommend it?
Boom. I would say if you're looking for something to watch it. Like why not? Like there's nothing that I would say like, oh shit, don't waste your time with that pile of dog shit. You know?
Yeah.
I'd agree, disagree? Thoughts?
I would tell people not to watch it.
Get the fuck out of here, really?
I think it. I liked it more than I think it's good, but I didn't like it. So I think it's really bad. I think it's awful.
Wait. Can we rewind that? Like none of that made sense.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. The 2 things that you have, did you like it? And do you think it's good? I liked it more than I thought it was good.
Okay.
So I think both of my meters are on empty, but I liked it a little more. Here's good.
This is a really difficult scale to follow.
I think it's garbage. I think the show's garbage.
Get the fuck out of here. Why?
But I mean, it wasn't so garbage that I wanted to, like, that's not even true. I did want to turn it off at one point, but I commented it was an interesting ride. Like, it sucked us in enough that I was like, after the first episode, I was like, I think this is bad. I literally said this verbatim.
I can hear it.
I said, I think this is really bad, but like, I want to know what's happening. You know, so like, the story does enough to be like, but I mean, any story, like the story itself is just interesting enough where it's like, oh, who's this fucking person? I want to know what's happening. I'm mad at this show for like making me watch 6 more episodes.
So that like by that logic, and I think we're going to argue about this because I feel like this is going to be similar to our gray man argument, isn't that, shut up, just don't take me down a dark path. I just got over it.
I'm ready.
I just got over that fucking, hey Richie, go fuck yourself.
Sure.
I lost my train of thought. Damn you, Richie.
Damn you, gray man. It kills everything.
If it's good enough, like based on the landscape of content that is out now, and the majority of dog shit that gets put out, for something that holds your interest long enough for you to sit through 7 episodes and kind of go along for the ride, isn't that validation enough on some level?
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm giving it. Enough of that like little eke of a meter of like, it was entertaining enough at points to make me want to like see where it went. But that is like, it's really low level to me because almost anything can do that. Like you can tease anything where it's like, it's not a terribly original idea to be like, hey, so there's this family, moves into a house, they start getting creepy letters, there's all these wacko neighbors and people you think it might be. Who do you think it is?
Yeah,
It ends.
little
Of course.
whodunit.
A shitty whodunit makes you want to be like, well, I want to know who did it.
Not a real shitty whodunit.
Well, yeah, a real shitty whodunit. Then this show does not give you no such pleasure at the end, which we'll get to.
We'll get to.
But
and I like pleasure at the end. Everyone knows that about me.
I like pleasure at the beginning and then just pain. No, I just thought like my stages of watching it were after the first episode, this is bad, I think, but I want to see what happens. And then like I almost swung all the way back after like maybe the third episode where I said, you know what, like this is bad, but it's almost like trying to be kind of bad, which I thought was really interesting. Not like, but like campy, and in like a campy way where it's like it's like almost the Kristen Bell show, the woman across the street in the window.
That's so funny because my wife said a similar thing, but not.
It's like
didn't realize she was saying that.
It's like 10% of that energy, where it's like, oh, it's not like self-aware comedy, but it's like I thought at a point it kind of knew that like this is just kind of like trashy TV and we're having fun.
Yeah,
like I thought it kind of had that energy.
Sure.
And so that I was willing to be like, okay, I'm gonna try to look at it through that lens and I'm gonna buy in. So then I feel like for like episodes 4, 5, 6, I was like, okay, this is just like mindless, trashy, stylized entertainment, which I can get behind. I have my moments, but then the ending comes and it's like, okay, this was all for naught. And so that's sort of like my roller coaster.
So then let's jump right to the end, although there's some other things I want to discuss, but
We'll get in there. Fucking
it's good TV. Yeah. It's good TV. It's the Code Red.
I'm dead. Coursing through his blood.
So is that what tainted it? If it had a tight resolution, would you say, oh, great? Even if it was like bad, would you be like, is it just the fact that it's so open-ended? Spoilers, there is no killer. You do not know.
Yeah, well, I think the ending is what makes that show so bad. I think if it had ended and they fingered somebody, metaphorically, even if they picked someone out
Yes.
and claimed a killer at the end, like even if that was poorly done, it at least would have been like satisfying enough to be like, okay, I can look back on that show and think, like, because it's not even that they didn't name a killer. That's just one part of like the 20 super loose ends.
Yeah.
Like so many story offshoots and things that happen that like they spend considerable time on and build up in a way that makes you think like, oh, this is clearly a big deal. Like the fucking baby blood cult that's meeting in the last episode with the dad that's the killer from the fucking past. And there's a moment of acknowledgement that they know that's him. It's like, okay, clearly this has to be resolved. No. Like that's almost worse than not knowing who the killer is.
So now we're on a whole different thing because that's what I didn't like about it. That's my biggest problem with the show is not just the end wasn't resolved. That I don't have a problem with is that if you know, I think of the mind of the writer. You're going into this, and I was talking about with Nicole. It's like if you're writing this, like you write with a purpose. Like all these things mean something, right? But if you know your end is, it's sort of just the house encapsulates like everybody, like the mystique of the house, like everybody. It's almost the answer was everybody is the watcher because it just like takes over.
I thought that's where it was going.
And that's like that's interesting, and I could like kind of get on board with that.
Yeah.
But to your point, because they knew that there was no like grand conclusion, like it's Billy from 4C or whatever.
I sold some stuff to Billy and 4C.
Pretty bird. Yeah, can you say pretty bird? Pretty bird. Yes, pretty bird.
That they can just write these stories that go nowhere because it adds to that mystique of the house.
Yeah.
Each person has their little, and it's almost like too much of a cop-out.
It's a total bait and switch, the whole show.
And it's just lazy. To me, it comes off as like lazy because you're like, oh, where does the girl with pigtails and the cherry dress who sneaks into the guy's bedroom and like causes a divorce or whatever? Like,
I'm like, oh yeah, they never even touched on
where is that? Like, where is that? Who? Like, I have my theories on what happened. But
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and then
That's
the
a
show
huge
gets
plot.
over, and then oh my God, yeah, that whole fucking subplot. But then the show gets over, so you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, even if you're like, oh, that ending was a little like subpar in the moment, then I went to read about it, and then you learn, if you didn't know about it up front, you're like, oh, okay, so some of this kind of happened.
Yes.
Not really. Hardly any of it.
Well, the plot happened.
Sort
the
of.
general plot.
But even that's very generous. Like, the family never even really moved into the house.
Yes.
It's not like their animal ended up dead. It's not like they were having all these crazy confrontations with their neighbors where there was threats and fucking a tunnel underneath the house and all that shit. But like, so it's like they made up so much. So it's a totally fictionalized story that's based on this really loose thread of an idea of this real thing that happened. So it's like if you made up all this shit and you decided that it was important to include it in your story, then like make up a good ending.
Yeah.
Like, you're already making everything up. Why would you just end and be like, they didn't know who it was?
I'm fine with the ending if they tied all the pieces together to something.
Yeah, in some
to
like
a little more
thematic-
tangible way. It feels like they were really close to something that I was like, clever. The house is the villain almost. You know, the house ties
Has a
everyone,
spell
has
over
a spell
people,
over
yeah.
people. Like it does it. Like, cool. Okay, I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
But because of how loose, and I'm gonna keep using the word lazy, maybe that's not the right word, but just like how loose everything else was around that, all those bits and pieces that at the time were like, that's interesting on its own. And then like, oh, but roads don't lead to one central
No.
inconclusive enough. That's my biggest problem with it.
Yeah.
But I still stand with my beginning statement of all of that stuff is kind of fun if you look at it like, oh, I don't like the word trashy that you use, but it's just like entertainment. It's Halloween entertainment. It's spooky, fun.
Yeah, but then it has to end like, it has to have some payoff. I kept thinking like, when's someone gonna die? Like, when's something gonna happen that really matters? Like, when something really consequential. I was like, this fucking daughter slutting it up, like horror trope. You know what I mean? Like, she's gonna go. Oh, this kid that's statutory in her, like not in Jersey though. Apparently,
totally cool in
getting in the
Jersey.
pool. It's like, oh, something's gonna happen to him. And it's like, again, you're already making all this shit up. Make up some stuff that actually makes you go like, oh my God. Instead of just like, oh, there was 3 times in 7 episodes where I was like, ooh, that was cool. You know?
See, and I'm gonna say that's a pro. For me, what I enjoyed about it is I said this to my wife, that I like that there were no like jump scares. It felt, you're gonna hate this, it felt Hitchcockian to me. I knew it in a sense that they really focused on the suspense building, and that I think they did really well. I was tense the whole time, and not in a cheap way. In a very purposeful, from a directorial, from a cinematography standpoint, from a tone standpoint, just from a score standpoint, like all the elements and the craft of the film helped me feel tense, and I assume that's by design. Like, it was more focused on making you feel uncomfortable throughout than scaring you or saying like there's a murderer on the loose. Or it was just be uneasy being in this house. And you're gonna be uneasy this whole time because that's how those characters probably felt. Like, I think that was the design from a tone standpoint, and I thought they executed that well. I liked that.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Great. What do you disagree about it?
Because I think that like the fact that all of the characters generally outside of the family were so like cartoonishly over the top.
It's not a prank. You need to sell. Do.
That is at odds with you saying that like the tone is very like suspenseful and intense, because like Jennifer Coolidge, love her, great performance, super fun, but it's like throughout the first few episodes especially, and Shooter McGavin,
Well, moron, good for Happy Gilmore. Oh my God!
Christopher McDonald, yeah, who love to see him.
He was great.
He was great, but like they're all so cartoonishly. Maybe it's us. Maybe it's us. You gotta sell that house tomorrow. You gotta sell that house tomorrow.
You actually did a good impression.
Thank you. That is my first time.
That was really good.
But like that kind of thing, it's like it's comical. That's like the camp aspect. So to me, it can't be both campy but also genuinely unnerving, because the whole time I'm kind of like, oh, I like
That's crazy.
This is funny, stupid.
No, but it's not like those. those cast of characters, that town was weird. Like it's a weird,
to an unrealistic
creepy
extent. To an unrealistic extent, those neighbors, like the neighbors were like a
tracksuit
little over the top. Yeah,
but I think they weren't inconsistent within the universe that they built. Like that whole place, for that to really work, of like this mystery of like it could be anybody. All these people will need to be plausible fucking nut jobs. All those characters have to be plausible murderers for everyone to be like, it could be that person, it could be that person.
But you can be a plausible murderer without it being like comical. It's played to like over-the-top exaggerated effect. You know that. Like they're leaning into it so much.
But that's part of the fun. Like I almost think it's like suspense for dummies, for a really shitty way to phrase it. Like this is a general audience thing. And I just think you just have to get it.
It might not frighten you yet, but it will.
It's so, like, I never felt particularly uncomfortable because it was all so, like, stupid. Like, it was like, they were all just like, oh yeah, we're all just kind of, like, extreme caricatures of people.
So when you're in that house and he's listening to the music, the guy that is in everything? What's the Joe Fontagnazzi?
Bobby Canavale.
When Bobby Canavale is listening to the music, that creepy music that also kind of didn't really go anywhere, that comes in the house like randomly throughout, and he's like listening, and then the person walks behind him, like a shadowy figure walks by. Like you're not nervous or anything, you're just like, oh, because that stupid neighbor.
Well, no, like in the moment for a minute sometimes, in like the early episodes. Like in the first couple, because you don't really know where it's gonna go, you don't really know the tone. But then by like episode 3, you're like, okay, so nothing ever happens, and like, and that campiness does not go away. And then it gets to the point where things kind of start to happen, where they're like chasing people through the tunnel, which is like a cool little sequence. But then then they don't do anything sensical. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we just boarded it up. I didn't go back down. Like, you don't go down to that bedroom with a fucking shotgun. You can't call 3 of your buddies from fucking New York to come up and like patrol those tunnels. Yeah. You would just leave that lead uncovered and just be like, all right, put bricks over it. It's fine now.
But that goes back to the right. Like all of these, there's really cool and interesting threads that just go nowhere. They're just literal dead ends, and that's the worst part of. That's the worst part.
The worst part of it, for sure.
Is not that it happened. Like I liked what was happening. I enjoyed the ride as that they've tried to take me on.
Yeah, but that's an interesting, just larger conversation that maybe we don't even have to have right now. But like, if something's great until the last 10 minutes, until the wrap up, then it's not great. Like, then it's like probably kind of bad.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm never gonna say it's great.
That. Like, I can't even say it's good because like I was happy until they tried to wrap up the story, and then God, what a nightmare! Like the end, like it made no sense. It didn't wrap. Like then that's just a poorly executed thing, series or film or whatever.
I'll meet you halfway on it, but I think you get a little more leniency on a series because there's just so much more time. I kind of thought throughout, like, maybe this just should be a movie, because some of it just felt like nothing's happening and it's taking hours to not go that far. So it's like, we could tighten this up, just do a fucking 2-hour movie and we could be done with it.
Yeah.
But again, I just kind of enjoyed it for the ride. To argue against myself.
Love that.
The thing that, about them being purposeful with the suspense and staying in the universe sort of that they built.
Other than what I just said.
I stick with what I'm saying. Okay. Is the thing I liked the second least is the end when Jennifer Coolidge buys the house. And that fucking shadowy figure comes out of the stairs?
Yeah.
And is like gonna murder her or something? Like that seems so far out of character to what we had been known for. And then I go, man, that's fucking cheap and shitty, because the only reason you have Jennifer Coolidge turn heel is so you can like really terrorize her, and the audience can feel like, well, fuck her, she was a bitch. Yeah. So we're glad that she's getting her comeuppance, and that's like you just did that to put the audience in a certain perspective to be okay with her being terrorized.
Yeah.
In
Which
that
I
way.
wasn't even.
Yeah,
it got so badly, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this poor woman.
Yeah,
no one deserves this. The dog?
The dog gets murdered, and then this thing comes out, there's no evidence of that. Like, oh, so she's dead. Like, oh, they're just gonna murder her.
Yeah.
But the Watcher wasn't trying to murder the family at all.
There was a chance in my mind that it could have all just ended up being a hoax. Like until that kind of where it's like maybe this was just all bullshit. Yeah. Some fucking person that was just like trolling them.
Yeah.
But like then it's like, oh no, it is like a ghost.
Yeah, like how do you come out of this? Like there's no like that little piece was like just take that whole fucking thing out. Like that just like made me angry that happened. Because that seemed out of character and out of place from for 6 episodes of what been established.
Yeah.
So that bothered me.
There was a lot of stupid moments.
It's a handful of stupid moments.
Like, I mean, you talk about the obviousness of like that guy, that professor who like they confront in the supermarket, who they were like, that's the most likely suspect. He shows up there the next day and he's like, hey, go fuck yourselves, you fucking people think you can come up here. And it's like, I'm the Watcher, remember? And you're just like that's the most like over the top shit where you're just like, oh, now he's really the suspect. Like, but it's self-aware in its stupidity. So that was where I was trying to give it some credit, but then that's where the tonal thing doesn't work for me because like I can't be scared. Like in episode 1, there was a moment where I first was like, the fuck is happening? Where it's like, well, I didn't even got to the house yet, and Bobby Canavale, I think, was talking to like his accountant or something, which was honestly, as a growing adult now, it's like the most scariest part of this.
His
Jesus Christ, you're giving away all your investments.
The 401k.
You fucking idiot. So in episode 1, he's talking to his accountant or whatever, and like up until that point, it had been like, okay, like what? I'm kind of feeling this. I'm trying to figure this out. But then like there's just like the way the camera moves, and it like he's like lensing it, and it's the first time that happens, and it's just kind of like pushing in on him, like very like melodramatically, like very intentionally, and he's like, I'm gonna get this house for my wife, and it's what she's always deserved. And it's just like, I was like, what the fuck? And like it's the most like weird thing, and that was the first flash I had of like, oh, it's kind of like doing a thing.
I just think it lays it on thick for general audiences. That's the best way I can, like, this is meant to do exactly what it did. It caused a little bit of a stir. It you know, people are researching it now. People are looking into the, to the real story. Vanity Fair is doing articles on it. Like, it's creating
You're not
conversation.
Find any satisfaction there either.
No. My point is, I think content creators, because it's not just like filmmakers, I would say, like show creators, film creators, like I think you sacrifice a little bit of an integrity for a wider audience. Like we have to make sure general audiences are going to understand this, and they're gonna get why he needs this house. Like we can't have it be that subtle, because people are going to ask questions like, why didn't he just sell it? Why didn't he just want the house? That's my excuse for that. So I kind of just let some of that stuff go because they need everyone to get on board.
No, I know what you're saying, but I think most shows and movies do that now. But this one was doing it to like a intentionally stylized effect. So maybe that's splitting hairs, but to me it wasn't just like, let's really spell it out for the dumbasses that are watching. It was like clearly like, this is kind of the thing we're doing. It's like a little flair, like a little Ryan Murphy flair. And that just like, that's at odds with like the fear of it for me. Like I wanted to be scared. I was ready for like a little, I don't watch a lot of horror stuff. I was ready for like a little gore, a little like, oh shit, like well, this is really creepy. Like I really prefer like disturbing and psychologically disturbing to violent horror and gore.
Well,
like I really want
I don't like gore.
Like
gore
people going mad.
Yeah.
Like The Shining. I mean, The Shining has a little bit of blood and gore in there too, but like a guy that's just going crazy. Like the house, like there's nothing wrong with the house, but like something about it makes people go crazy. Like that's interesting. That could be really scary. That could be.
That's kind of what they did, just probably not to.
No, but
your
there's
liking.
a baby blood cult, like red herrings. You know, like it's these people. Oh, they fucking.
Well, yeah. The writing is my least favorite. Like, technically, I just think that some of that stuff. You know, it was a fucking thing. I was fucking laugh. It was like laughable. Other than the demon. Now it's a fucking ghost who wants to murder people out of nowhere. When they because they accuse everyone at some point. When they accuse the kid, the security kid, the 19-year-old security kid, and their big piece of evidence is his screen name.
Yeah. I got a real good feeling about this guy.
What? His fucking screen? Like, who gives a shit about his screen name? But we're gonna go down this fucking rabbit hole, like, and I'm supposed to buy that as an audience member? These adults who know how the fucking world works is supposed to be like, yes, because his screen name is the Watcher, and we have to hack into that, which no human on Earth has to hack into anything to learn someone's, like, handle.
Yeah.
It's a fucking handle. It's public facing. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, and that kid too. That problem was that like the Watcher had apparently been like terrorized the family 10 years ago.
It's not this 19-year-old kid.
He wasn't 8 writing letters. Like it's just, the whole thing was still like no one thought of this.
You're forcing this, so clearly it's not.
Clearly
it's not
it was
him.
never going to be him. And then it was all just so airmailed. I knew it wasn't the dying black woman, the PI at the end. Even as she confessed in real time, I was like, clearly it's not her.
I thought it was her the whole time.
Because she was the least likely.
She was the least likely. I was like, she's the only sane human being. I bet
We started
she's
to
the
think
one.
it was the son, like the younger brother of the family. Like he was involved because they did some stuff with him where it was like, why are they showing him like out of focus in the background?
I remember that shot too. I was like, that's a really interesting shot.
Monique, I was like, that kid is doing something.
I said
back
this.
there.
I remember that shot exactly. I said the same thing. I said, look at this interesting
They're
framing. That he's
framing
just
him
like,
in on purpose.
and then I started to think too. I was like, they're not giving him anything to do.
Yeah.
Like, he has nothing to do. in
Yeah,
the
it's gonna
show.
turn out that he's like a little possessed.
Yeah. I didn't go that far. I was just like, I just remember that shot.
Yeah, we were like 100%. It's that kid. Like that kid's involved somehow. And just like, all right, last thing, and maybe last complaint out of many, but just like, did anyone really have an arc? You know, like you watch that show and you like that's what the first thing I would look for. It's like maybe you could strain to say that like Bobby Canavale had some kind of arc about like learning about the perils of success or like there was nothing there. So basically everything that happened in that show, even the stuff that wasn't horror or the baby blood cult or the dad who murdered his family before, like the really big violent stuff, even just like the 16-year-old daughter having a thing with the security guy, like none of that matters because it doesn't matter to their character, like it doesn't matter for the story. So none of that had to happen. So then the whole show starts to feel like what I said earlier, like a bait and switch. Like the entire show has no real point.
Yes.
And that's not just because they didn't label a killer, or not just because that's not. It's just all just like here's some stuff to fill your time.
Because we're just gonna point you in this direction because we can.
Yeah.
And then we'll just point you over here because we can. If they tied everything to the theme of the house is enchanting and will drive you mad.
Yeah.
If they just tied everything a little bit tighter or at all to that, I think the show would have been excellent maybe.
Yeah, or make a bigger picture, make a bigger statement about greed. Like make the Watcher almost be like the voice of reason at the end. Because you're like, oh yeah, you guys were greedy and you came up here and thought you could have it all. And you couldn't because maybe they were kind of like shitty people, which they weren't really.
They weren't.
Right?
They were
So
just
like,
good
that was
people.
another thing. It was like that could be an interesting thing. We're like, oh, the Watcher's almost the hero in a way.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
Like the Joker, you know, like kind of like it has a different
anti-hero
viewpoint.
type.
Yeah. But it's like, no, there's none of that's there to connect any of it together.
Yeah. I'll say the last thing. What I really thought it was, because I love to outsmart everybody. What I thought would have been interesting would have been that the whole town was in on it. That it was the town just terrorizing these rich fucks who come into their town and exploit them essentially. Because as we were going through the episodes, like everybody's really profiting off of these people's misery. And they're gonna drive them out of town, and then a new yuppie rich couple's gonna come in, and this whole town, police department benefits, PI benefits, like
and they all get a kick out
and
of
they
it.
all get a kick, like they get financial out of it. They get a kick out, like it's fun, like it brings the town closer together. You know, like that's. I thought how it was sort of developing, and again another interesting
Potential direction.
but it doesn't. Nothing panned out. So
Yeah,
you're
we
right. I
thought
did
that
hate
too.
it. You're right.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's bad. You can't. It's bad.
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad.
How can you say that something has no ends are tight, all ends are loose, and specific aspects of the ending are very bad, and nothing is resolved? But it was still all right. It's still pretty good.
Because, let me ask you this: do you like Game of Thrones?
No.
Damn it!
No, but
people-
that's a great parallel.
I bet most people would say I love Game of Thrones.
Well, you the caveat. It's like I loved it for the first 4 or 5 seasons. For the first 4 or 5 seasons, I would have told you it's the best television show of all time.
And
But-
now, do you like it?
No, I'll never watch it again. I'm not watching House of Dragon. They will never get my eyes again because that's how bad it
You
was.
don't earn those eyes.
No. So then I cannot look at the 8 seasons or whatever it is and say that was a good show, even though the first 5 seasons were the best TV of all time? No, because it was that bad.
I think the difference between film and television, as we do our first television quote quote show, is I think you have a little bit more leniency to have a little bit more ambiguousness because of the length of it. And you could, it's more, I think TV is more about the ride than it is the end. I think TV is because you spend time on this journey, where a movie is you sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's like one sitting, it's one meal. How was that meal? But if you're gonna go to a restaurant and have everything on the menu for a month, and you taste every single thing, but you didn't like the seafood, but you love the pasta, like, do you like the restaurant? Like, if you liked the majority of it, yeah, I think you'd be like, yeah, it's good, I enjoyed it. So I feel like I judge TV differently because of that, because you're going through this whole journey. It is the journey, less about the end than in film. I just thought about that, so
No.
how'd that
I mean,
sound?
in real time, it sounds really good.
Thank you.
No, in real time, sure. Like, I agree with you in the sense that we do have to judge them a little differently. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the totality as, if not the only factor, a big factor. Like that, like, you know, was that a good story? At the end of the day, even simplified even more, these are just stories. Was that a good story? No, that was an awful fucking story. Like,
I don't think it's an
awfully
awful
told.
story. I don't think it's an awful story. Yes, it was.
There were moments of enjoyment. There's entertainment because there's talented people.
Yeah.
I thought Farrow did great. I thought Jennifer Coolidge did great.
I think the
thought
performances were good.
were great. Like, everybody did pretty
The
good.
performances were good.
So it's
Christopher
fine.
McDonald, I thought, was great.
Yeah.
I thought he was great because
Really great performance.
I wasn't expecting it. I thought he did a really nice. I don't think he was cartoonish, personally. You said a lot of people were cartoonish.
They were all
He wasn't.
cartoonish.
But their dialogue, if not their performances. Their dialogue
That's the
is
writing.
so
That's exactly right.
Sure.
But the dialogue is literally like, hey, you know, I forget what he said. You know what he said.
Insert clip.
Basically just like, maybe I'm the killer. Like, everything was one step short of being like, maybe it's me. Maybe you guys
I mean,
got
he
it.
did say that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
why he actually
yeah,
did
no,
say that.
it's fucking crazy. So,
Thumbnail.